If there are any among this people who should ever apostatize, prepare your backs for a good whipping. One of our brethren some years ago spoke of the payment of tithing as fire insurance. Nonetheless, the word of the Lord is clear that those who do not keep the commandments and observe the laws of God shall be burned at the time of his coming.
Each of you bring your right arm to the square. Each of you bow your head and say yes.
Said President Brigham Young to the congregation, Brother Thomas B. Marsh, formerly the president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, has come to us after an absence of nearly 19 years. He is on the stand today and wishes to make a few remarks to the congregation. He came into my office and wished to know whether I could be reconciled to him, and whether there could be a reconciliation between himself and the Church of the living God. He reflected for a moment and said, I am reconciled to the Church, but I want to know whether the Church can be reconciled to me. He is here, said President Young, and I want him to say what he may wish to. Brethren and sisters, I now introduce to you Brother Thomas B. Marsh. When the Quorum of the 12 was first organized, he was appointed to be their president. Brother Marsh rose to the rather crude pulpit. This man, who was named the first president of the Council of 12 Apostles, and to whom the Lord had spoken in so marvelous a manner, as recorded in section 112 of the Doctrine and Covenants, which I wish you'd read. He said to the people, and now I quote Brother Marsh, I do not know that I can make all this vast congregation hear and understand me. My voice was never very strong, but it has been very much weakened of late years by the afflicting rod of Jehovah. He loved me too much to let me go without whipping. I have seen the hand of the Lord in the chastisement which I have received. I have seen and known that it has proved he loved me. For if he had not cared anything about me, he would not have taken me by the arm and given me such a shaking. If there are any among this people who should ever apostatize and do as I have done, prepare your backs for a good whipping, if you are such as the Lord loves. But if you will take my advice, you will stand by the authorities. But if you go away and the Lord loves you as much as he did me, he will whip you back again. Many have said unto me, he continued, how is it that a man like you, who understood so much of the revelations of God as recorded in the book of Doctrine and Covenants, should fall away. I told them not to feel too secure, but to take heed lest they should fall. For I had no scruples in my mind as to the possibility of men falling away. He continued, I can say in reference to the quorum of the 12 to which I belonged, that I did not consider myself a whit behind any of them. And I suppose that others had the same opinion, but let no one feel too secure. For before you think of it, your steps will slide. You will not then think nor feel for a moment as you did before you lost the Spirit of Christ. For when men apostatize, they are left to grovel in the dark, speaking in a voice that was difficult to hear, and appearing as an old man when he was actually only 57 or 58 years of age. He spoke of the travails through which he had passed before he had finally made his way to the valley of the Great Salt Lake and asked that he might be baptized again into the church. I wondered as I read that story, so filled with pathos, what had brought him to this sorry state. I discovered it in the Journal of Discourses, in a talk given to the saints in this same Bowery the year before by George A. Smith. I think if you bear with me for a minute or two, it is worth the telling, to illustrate to all of us the need to be careful in dealing with small matters which can lead to great consequences. According to the account given by George A. Smith, while the saints were in far west Missouri, the wife of Thomas B. Marsh, then president of the 12, and Sister Harris concluded they would exchange milk in order to make a little larger cheese than they otherwise could. To be sure to have justice done, it was agreed that they should not save the strippings to themselves, but that the milk and strippings should all go together. Now, for you who've never been on a farm around a cow, I should say that the strippings came at the end of the milking and were richer in cream. Mrs. Harris, it appeared, was faithful to the agreement and carried to Mrs. Marsh the milk and strippings. But Mrs. Marsh, wishing to make some extra good cheese, saved a pint of strippings from each cow and sent Mrs. Harris the milk without the strippings. A quarrel arose, and the matter was referred to the home teachers. They found Mrs. Marsh guilty of failure to keep her agreement. She and her husband were upset. An appeal was taken from the teacher to the bishop, and a regular church trial was had. President Marsh did not consider that the bishop had done him and his lady justice, for they, that is, the bishop's court, decided that the strippings were wrongfully saved and that the woman had violated her promise. Marsh immediately took an appeal to the High Council, who investigated the question with much patience. And, says George A. Smith, I assure you they were a grave body. Marsh, being extremely anxious to maintain the character of his wife, made a desperate defense, but the High Council finally confirmed the bishop's decision. Marsh, not being satisfied, took an appeal to the First Presidency of the church, and Joseph and his counselors had to sit upon the case, and they approved the decision of the High Council. This little affair, Brother Smith continues, kicked up a considerable breeze, and Thomas B. Marsh then declared that he would sustain the character of his wife even if he had to go to hell for it. The then president of the 12 apostles, the man who should have been the first to do justice and cause reparation to be made for wrong committed by any member of his family, took that position. And what next? He went before the magistrate and swore that the Mormons were hostile toward the state of Missouri. The affidavit brought from the government of Missouri an exterminating order, which drove some 15,000 saints from their homes and habitations, and some thousands perished through the suffering, the exposure consequent on this state of affairs. So, such is the account of the occurrence by George A. Smith.
I believe most of us are familiar with the sad account of Thomas B. Marsh and his wife Elizabeth. Brother Marsh was one of the first modern-day apostles called after the church was restored to the earth. He eventually became president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. While the saints were in far west Missouri, Elizabeth Marsh, Thomas's wife, and her friend, Sister Harris, decided they would exchange milk in order to make more cheese than they otherwise could. To be certain all was done fairly, they agreed that they should not save what were called the strippings, but that the milk and strippings should all go together. Strippings came at the end of the milking and were richer in cream. Sister Harris was faithful to the agreement, but Sister Marsh, desiring to make some especially delicious cheese, saved a pint of strippings from each cow and sent Sister Harris the milk with no strippings. This caused the two women to quarrel. When they could not settle their differences, the matter was referred to the home teachers to settle. They found Elizabeth Marsh guilty of failure to keep her agreement. She and her husband were upset with the decision, and the matter was then referred to the bishop for a church trial. The bishop's court decided that the strippings were wrongfully saved, and Sister Marsh had violated her covenant with Sister Harris. Thomas Marsh appealed to the High Council, and the men comprising this council confirmed the bishop's decision. He then appealed to the first presidency of the church. Joseph Smith and his counselors considered the case and upheld the decision of the High Council. Elder Thomas B. Marsh, who sided with his wife through all of this, became angrier with each successive decision. So angry, in fact, that he went before a magistrate and swore that the Mormons were hostile toward the state of Missouri. His affidavit led to, or at least was a factor, in Governor Lilburn Boggs' cruel extermination order, which resulted in over 15,000 saints being driven from their homes with all the terrible suffering and consequent death that followed. All of this occurred because of a disagreement over the exchange of milk and cream.
He decried exactly what his church should be called. Quote, "For thus shall my church be called in the last days, even the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints." Close quote.
Travis Wingetzel. So, the previous video I did today was finally my getting around to doing a video showing the two clips of Hinckley and Monson lying at the pulpit of conference about what happened to Thomas B. Marsh. And I'm well aware that there are popular critics who do videos and web pages that expose that Thomas B. Marsh was not excommunicated by Joseph Smith for his wife's honor. But you guys did not do a thorough enough research. Because if those of you who have been watching my channel all these years have seen me bring up other sources that have confirmed of what Thomas B. Marsh was claiming in his affidavit and clarifying what he was confused about. So what he was claiming was criminal. He's a whistleblower in this affidavit. And Orson Hyde was excommunicated for verifying the truth of the letter. Orson Hyde, however, came back into the church, and Joseph Smith put him back in Brigham Young's 12. Thomas B. Marsh did not want to come back. And I've been telling you since I learned of the Joseph Smith papers, which again added to my research on the major topic. The Joseph Smith papers are authoritative primary source documents, even when they're forgeries. Because in the forgery lies, the truth is revealed. And so the presidents of the church had access to all of the facts and much of the Joseph Smith papers decades ago. And yet the prophets have been lying to us to cover up the lies of the cover-up of the lies of the cover-up of the lies each time they get caught. That's why they changed the lie, is because somebody calls them out and says, nope, lie. So the church then says, another lie, to claim it's now the truth. And unfortunately, ex-FOMOs fall for these lies, thinking that, yeah, we finally got the church to confess the truth. Liars never tell the truth. Do you not know this? Are you not watching R-rated movies now that you've left the church? Have you seriously led a sheltered life where you knew nobody who lied to you other than the church, who you think came out and told you the truth finally? And so it was my intention to do another video of just the two quotes with the Joseph Smith documents and other documents supporting the Joseph Smith documents. But after taking a 3-hour nap, dear God, I was beat this morning. And you can see the eye is still not better. And he slipped on my wrist. Ow. But I figured that the majority of Mormons are not going to catch on. And so they're just going to ignore it, hope it goes away, continue to lie that the church is true. And that's a shame, because it's not. Oh, no. And so I'm going to go over each of the documents that are going to be out of order. Because to put them in order and in an explanation for you is going to take a long time to do. And so the first thing we have is from Oliver Cowdery, who left the church right before the bleep hit the fan. The Danites, as they called themselves, were still concealed from the majority of the Mormons who are innocent. Only those Mormons who were lied to about the name of the church and that the religion is Christian and not Jewish are also added to this list, as they were deceived by the Danite missionaries to join the church. And this is what I've been telling you from the Joseph Smith History of 1838, which was written after the so-called claim that Joseph Smith rose up against the Mormons to declare the new name of the church. Section 115. That Nelson got up at the pulpit of conference and justified the reinforcement of the name, threatening all of you to say the full name of Jesus or Jesus is going to smite you down. And thus Mormons, likewise, were presenting the love of Jesus to their fellow man with threats of murder if you don't say the name Jesus and accept the Church of Jesus Christ as Christian, that Joseph is Christian, that the Book of Mormon is another testament of Jesus Christ, denouncing the Jewish religion of Joseph Smith. And so, yes, what Joseph Smith is revealing by knowing that Willard Richards added Jesus Christ to the name after Joseph was murdered, when Willard Richards was the one left behind in the room before Joseph was murdered, it's very clear that these Danites of Brigham Young were the ones that murdered Joseph Smith and changed the name and the religion. They are the Danite coup threat in 1838. I've already established it as fact, guys. Mormons who refuse to believe are purposely trying to defend terrorism. These Danites are terrorists. That's what Thomas B. Marsh was whistleblowing about. That's why there was an extermination order. There is a national security threat, and they were the Danites. Those Danites were allowed to continue to exist. And sure enough, as true to the prophecy of their threat that Thomas B. Marsh exposed in his affidavit, so did they do, and are still in the process of doing right now. Their third great grandchildren are in position in the United States and are accomplishing this work. And I've been warning you, and you don't believe, and you hate me, and you threaten to murder me if I don't accept Jesus as my personal Savior, just like you did to Joseph. And so, Oliver Cowdery. See, I can give you the full story, but here's the documents. And it's out of order, like I said. And so Oliver Cowdery is being told by David Whitmer, who likewise was chased out by the Danites, that in June of 1838, after Oliver Cowdery left, that Sidney Rigdon was the influencer to turn Joseph Smith into the Danite leader. Notice, Oliver Cowdery calls Joseph Smith the prophet, seer, and revelator to the Church of the Latter-day Saints. Section 115 says that before Oliver Cowdery left the church, it was changed by Joseph Smith to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And oopsie, you should have threatened Oliver Cowdery, gone and found him, rather than used him against Joseph Smith to lie about Oliver Cowdery and expand the lies that he made accusations to. Because, oopsie, yet another confirmation that it's the Danites who changed the name of the church. That section 115 is a forged document. And lo and behold, when's the date given? Yeah, in 1838. And so, yeah, he's believing that the secret band was created in far west Missouri rather than Adam-on-Diamond, which is what Thomas B. Marsh is claiming in his affidavit. So, defense. All right, so the claim of Thomas B. Marsh being excommunicated by the council in February 5th, 1838 is completely false. Because it should have been in the High Council minutes. Likewise, the excommunication in absentia should have been in the High Council minutes. It's not. We have the Joseph Smith papers now. And oops, the High Council was not in harmony with the elders of the new Brigham Young. Because the elders' journal makes it very clear that they are the enemy. This was published after the fact. That's why it can't be found in the High Council minutes. It was put in later. And so, one of the tells again, is the name of the church. In the Elders' Journal, after Brigham Young took over, the name of the church is now, the following are the minutes of the proceedings of a General Assembly of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, assembled at the following places to transact this business of said church. This is a forged document. This whole Thomas B. Marsh thing, which in this particular case, he was the clerk. For this particular thing. They are claiming Thomas B. Marsh knew of the name of the church. Oops. And so, yeah, the title for the book of the minutes, there's a big difference for the High Council. The Conference Minutes and Record Book of Christ's Church of Latter-day Saints. Far West, April 6th, 1838. But the name's supposed to have been changed. Oopsies! Yep. They don't even put Jesus anywhere on the cover page. And so what's interesting is that Wikipedia had the correct information, but a Mormon has gone in again to Brigham Young's Wikipedia page to lie about the truth, to cover up and protect Brigham Young, as they so suppose, because in so you got busted as presenting a lie. First, I was exposing that Brigham Young was the first president of the Church of Jesus Christ, but the church has to maintain the lie that it is the Church of Jesus Christ, therefore Brigham Young is the second president. See the importance of the name? The name was never the Church of Jesus Christ. That was Brigham. This church is the Danite threat to America and the world. Told you this. I've been going over with it. When I found the book that I'd been searching for the information from the Mormon myths, I went over it with you. And then because I went over it with you, the church sent me a death threat, and here I am now. With all the problems I'm having today. Learning that the power outage was an actual cyber terrorist threat. I told you that in the other video. Rocky Mountain Power, in responding to my saying that there was a power outage, I expected it to just be a normal thing, and then they'll claim that they have no idea how it started, or that there are other people, and just go on. Nope. They responded and asked for my help on any information leading to information about what happened. They never do that. This was a terrorist threat, and the news did not cover it. My power went out exclusively in this region, if not this building, or buildings. We were attacked with a power shutdown. And after they got it fixed, they were asking for my help of any information about how it happened. I'm not supposed to know. It's supposed to be your job, guys. So yeah, scary, as the church has their broad reach to attack the one and only one who only knows the truth, whereas ex-FOMOs only know bits and pieces but still believe the lie of the Danites. the national security threat to America right now, still to this day. And it's abominable that Missouri lifted that extermination order because the Danites went and threatened them. Lift the Danite extermination order. This is mean. Religious freedom. Oh, dear God. And so, yes, Brigham Young became the president of the church on the 17th of March, 1839. Because Thomas B. Marsh was removed by Brigham Young on that date. Not the minutes in the High Council. That was not the case. And it was definitely not by Joseph. He's still in Liberty Jail. Dear God. And so, sure enough, the Mormon, when I clicked on the Wikipedia page to go, oh, they're putting 17th of March here, are they? Okay. Nope, they changed it, but it still remains on the home page before you click on the Wikipedia page. They put as the date April 14th, 1840. If Thomas B. Marsh leaves in October of 1838, you seriously think that Joseph is going to wait until 1840 to call a replacement? No, that's not how it was done. That's not how Joseph Smith informed the elders and all quorums to do it. The quorums choose the quorums. And who's the president? They vote. And so, sure enough, Brigham Young kicked out the Antichrist, anti-Mormon Korahors, the anti-Jesus Christers, and with the majority remaining, they voted for Brigham Young. And because Brigham Young is innocent, he's not the leader of the Danites. He's now accusing Thomas B. Marsh of apostasy rather than being threatened by the Danites, as Joseph Smith was letting back into the church those who wanted to come back into the church, who were chased out by the Danites. You know, like his brother William, who was also chased out by Brigham Young. You gotta pay attention, because there are liars in the midst. And it's all fun and games to think you're destroying the church by believing the lie of the liars who cooed the church, but that's the trap of Brigham Young, is that when it gets exposed that Joseph Smith was innocent, then, oh no, what do? You act like a Mormon, don't you? Because that's all you know to be taught to do. Because the church taught you to do that. To use feelings rather than forensic investigation of a crime scene. And so, no, even Joseph Smith, when he got back in 1839, went to the 12 specifically and condemned them for chasing out a good man, Thomas B. Marsh, and condemned Brigham Young for exalting himself. Joseph Smith knew who the enemy was, but because it requires evidence, he was not able to excommunicate Brigham Young. That's why people who commit crimes do it in secret, or a secret combination. But had Thomas B. Marsh come to recognize that Joseph Smith was framed, that affidavit could have been used against Brigham Young, among some other affidavits that they could have gotten, as the Mormons who were victims of the Danites could have come to Joseph Smith with their 2 or 3 witness statements, and thus there could have been a major disciplinary court action exposing all those who were involved with the Danites all the way up to Brigham Young. I would have loved to have been born and raised in the church to hear about that, but it didn't happen. The people who were scared away were scared away. And so the criminals were never punished for their crimes and excommunicated from the church. And so thus it led to Joseph Smith's assassination. And so in the minutes, it says that March 17th, 1839 is when Thomas B. Marsh was no longer president of the quorum. They don't put October. They don't put that other claim. That other claim is false. Even the Wikipedia on Thomas B. Marsh has to confess there's no records or evidence that such an occurrence happened. Hilarious. And so in the minutes, we have one on January 2nd, 1839. This is the High Council minutes. The High Council of Zion assembled according to adjourn. This is 2nd of January, 1839, Wednesday. Simeon Carter, Jared Carter, Solomon Hancock, John Badger, John Murdoch, George W. Harris, David Dort, Samuel Bent. The council was opened by prayer by Simeon Carter. The council adjourned until 2 weeks from today at 10:00 p.m. Ebenezer Robinson, clerk. 16th of January. That, yeah, 2 weeks from today. 1839, Wednesday. The High Council of Zion met far west, January 16th, 1839. The council was organized as follows: Simeon Carter, Jared Carter, Solomon Hancock, John Badger, John Murdoch, George W. Harris, Samuel Bent. See how much it was gutted as a result of the Danite War. There's a lot of people that are missing from this council, and there are some Danites on this council. The council was opened by prayer by the clerk. Resolved that the vote be rescinded which was passed last spring, which was passed last appointing Isaac Morley, recorder of patriarchal blessings. They're now making changes. Council adjourned until 2 weeks from today at 10:00 a.m. Council closed in prayer by President Brigham Young. Oopsies! Ebenezer Robinson, clerk. Just see how vital the Joseph Smith papers are. January 16th, 1839, the remaining Danites in the High Council of Zion are claiming Brigham Young is the president of at least the Quorum of 12. This is a bombshell, guys. And I'm 30 minutes in, the majority of Mormons will not get this far, as I saw from the comment replies just recently before this video. Dear God. And so we would expect that 2 weeks from 16th of January, we would see another insert, right? Wrong. 1st of June, 1844. Saturday. Nauvoo, June 1st, 1844. The High Council of the Church of the Oopsies Latter-day Saints. Met at the 70s Hall, agreeable to adjournment on the 1st of June, 1844 at 2 o'clock p.m. President William Marsh is now the president of the High Council in Zion. Which was now in Nauvoo. And so there you see George W. Harris, James Allred, Alpheus Cutler, William Huntington, Leonard Sobe, Peter Hawes as counselors. In place, Sabent, Henry G. Sherwood, Lewis D. Wilson, Lewis Dunbar Wilson, William C. Perry in place of David Fulmer, and Newell Knight, Danite. He's of section 117 infamy that I've been going over with you, where Joseph Smith condemns Newell K. Knight for being in the Danites. But I thought Joseph was the leader of the Danites. You gotta pay attention. This church lies big time. And so, yeah, this Mormon wiki claims Marsh was excommunicated from the church in absentia on 17th of March in Quincy, Illinois. Joseph Smith was still in Liberty Jail, just right up from Kansas City, Missouri. So clear across the state. And so what I thought was interesting in the Mormon wiki was that the Mormon who put it in tried to be fair and balanced by saying, however. But I'm kind of wondering why the the Community of Christ doesn't have this document or minutes that they could have presented to the world on this. And now that the Community of Christ, with their new female president, has given up all things Joseph Smith, I think that the church acquired that document if they had it and are purposely suppressing it. Because they handed over everything to the church. They want nothing to do with Joseph Smith and his Jewish religion anymore. They are Christian. And she got screwed over by taking the amount of money that she thought was a huge amount, not understanding she could have gotten billions rather than the 200 million. 200 billion she could have held out for, and the church still would have paid for it because it still would have been less than 1% of their total asset value. She made a boo-boo, not knowing her enemy. So, listen to this. According to Elder Thomas Job, a missionary of the reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, now known as the Community of Christ, serving in Utah, shortly before his death, Marsh attended a reorganized church conference in Salt Lake City. Apparently, the Community of Christ has a YouTube channel where they were posting the videos of their conferences, just as the church does, in Salt Lake City. And there claimed that young Joseph Smith III, was a prophet and bore a strong testimony to the truth and necessity of the reorganization. Now, yes, this could be seen as biased, trying to claim lies about a person to support and defend your organization. And continues on, he said that he would move east to join them if young Joseph would send for him. And so again, if there was a conference, there would have been minutes of the conference. And if there were minutes of the conference, it would very likely have been given over to the church in this acquisition. Show us the document. So there's the map. And there's the affidavit. And you can see that people had trouble spelling Accompanying. Because so did he. He's claiming that he was under orders of Joseph Smith, but that it was Mormons who came to him and went to march to Accompanying, but I couldn't find the enemy threat that was claimed to be against the Mormons in Accompanying. But yet he still goes on. There was a Galatian incident for which afterward he then left the church, and that's what he's referring to here. But yeah, he called for Joseph and Hiram to report to them, but it was White who reported in their stead. But he's talking about somebody else. Lyman White marched about 80 horsemen for Millport. He returned before night and called for Joseph Smith and Hiram Smith, and he spells Hiram Smith correctly, to report to them. Said Hiram, being counselor of said Joseph the prophet, and said he was, well, no, it wasn't until 1840, after the father died, that he then became the patriarch. Okay. And said White reported that he had been in sight of Millport, saw no one to fight. He's getting this information from Danites. Lyman White, Danite. Because this is what he's doing in his affidavit. We had better see to it, said Lyman White. When White stopped him by saying, never mind, we will have a private council. And Smith replied, very well, the private council I did not hear. The men were dismissed to go to their camps. Didn't happen. And then something about bee gums, taking the honey and burning the gums. Is that the honeycomb? Is that the gums? When White returned from Millport and informed Smith that the people were gone and the property left, Smith asked him if they had left any of the blacks for them. So now he's claiming that Joseph Smith is a racist. Yep, the Danites blamed Joseph for everything that they themselves were guilty of: polygamy, racism, terrorism, seditious conspiracy, apostasy. Oh, dear God. They have among them a company consisting of all that are considered true Mormons, called Danites. It may be a different generation, but it's still the same as their ancestors, who have taken an oath to support the heads of the church in all things that they say or do or are claimed to say or do, whether right or wrong. See, he knows who the enemy is, but it was the enemy who said this. People of Caldwell committed depredations on the Mormons. And so, yeah, the war that started with election fraud in Daviess County, with the decertification of the election by going to a judge and the sheriff saying, "I am Joseph Smith. You are to sign this affidavit that I, Joseph Smith, came to you to have you overthrow and decertify the election." But Joseph Smith was too far away. It wasn't him. It was a forged signature on the original document. Dear God. And so thus, the Danites are the threat. Right here. He knows, but he doesn't know because he's trusting the liars like ex-homos do. It is my opinion that neither said Joseph Smith the prophet nor any one of the principal men who is firm in the faith could be indicted for any offense in the county of Caldwell. The prophet inculcates the notion, and it is believed by every true Mormon, that Smith's prophecies are superior to the law of the land. You gotta get them right first. Because a lot of the claims of polygamy are from misunderstanding what Joseph actually said from that talk. One of which the Danites wrote in their journals, claiming that Joseph Smith had told them to go marry polygamous wives of the Lamanites. In the actual talk, Joseph Smith makes it very clear that we should embrace the natives, and the single elders should not be apprehensive of taking a wife. He doesn't say polygamy. This was Danites purposely inserting what didn't exist to justify the abominations. And yet I'm well aware that many ex-FOMOs believe that that talk says that They're supposed to be involved in polygamy. No. And so, Orson Hyde was the witness to the sworn affidavit, with Henry Jacobs also sworn and subscribed to the affidavit. And so, yes, it is legitimate. The Danites did cause the election fraud and tried to decertify the election. That is insurrection against the United States, which now the 14th Amendment is said that Joseph Smith could not run for president if he's involved in an insurrection against the United States. 14th Amendment wasn't until after the Civil War, was it? Yeah, 1866 on June 8th. And so, despite Joseph Smith being the first candidate for president to be assassinated, it resulted in the Confederates of the South doing exactly the exact same thing that the Danites did. If only there was some way to connect them, like some kind of symbol, like Lucifer's falling pentagram symbol on their Confederate flag and on the keystone of the doors of the Salt Lake Temple, which was put on Brigham Young's Nauvoo Temple. Oh, wait, there is, isn't there? And so, from way to perfection, this now makes sense, as Thomas B. Marsh is saying that these Danites intend to overthrow the United States, not just the state, and then conquer the whole world. This is their threat for which the extermination order was given. This is a terrorist threat to the United States of America and to all nations around the world. And now Cambodia has fallen, and Ecuador to the church. Hilarious. And they put in Kieran because he's Saudi Arabian, and they made a business deal with the princess. And so, the edition that I have has it set up differently, but on page 290, which is the same information, they have thrones to be cast down section. Until this grand council is held, and they're talking about the latter days. Remember, Thomas B. Marsh confirms this very thing that Joseph Fielding Smith is telling us is going to happen in the latter days. Thomas B. Marsh's affidavit confirms this national security threat to the United States of America by the Danites, which was led by Brigham Young, which to this day he was a part of. Joseph Fielding Smith Sr. and President Russell Marion Nelson, aka Lucifer. How did Isaiah know of the Latin Vulgate text? Thus, Joseph Smith Sr., who rewrote the 116 pages, because it's the learning of the Jews, not literal history Christian. Until Adam on Ammon is held. See what they did? Adam on Ammon did not exist, other than Newell K. Whitney and Danites who came to that location to build their headquarters. Satan shall hold rule in the nations of the earth. Satan has the keys of government. Melech. But at that time, 8 April 2024, the day that shall burn as an oven, the 9/11 event that will trigger the end of governments worldwide, with an election fraud and a decertification of the election and civil war this year for this election because they failed in the Exodus year of 2020. The threat is real. I'm the only one who exposed it, and I too was a whistleblower, and the government didn't listen, and then the things happened, and then they still don't want to believe me. At that time the thrones are to be cast down, and man's rule shall come to an end. For it is decreed that the Lord shall make an end of all nations. They're twisting Joseph Smith's prophecies to claim that Joseph is threatening to do this, but won't publish 19 July 1840. Preparations for this work is now going on. Uh-oh. Joseph Fielding Smith Sr. just admitted to committing insurrection, terrorism. See how fallen he became as Hiram's son. This is sad. But in the lie reveals the truth. Kingdoms are already tottering, some have fallen, but eventually they shall all go the way of the earth, and he shall come whose right it is to rule. Yeah, he's not talking about the Jewish Christ. Then shall he give the government to the saints of the Most High. See what he's claiming? That this church is believing. Nelson is directly involved in having the governments hand over their government to the church. This is why I do church news videos every weeknights. 5 p.m. when the workers technically go home, unless there's some other breaking news that would come on, but I usually don't catch it until the next day. Everything this church does is to this end. Mormons think, yeah, 'cause we're the one true church. We caught you in a lie. You can't deceive me. You can deceive ex-FOMOs, but they're still going to have their negative feelings. But you're not going to fool me. I have now reaffirmed by continually studying, confirmed the fact that I already established as fact, that this church is the enemy, working with the Council for National Policy since 1981 to overthrow the government. And when America falls, the rest of the world will fall. We are well aware of the enemies of man, who are leaders of nations, who are waiting to pounce once the United States has fallen. That's all they're waiting for. Putin, Kim Jong-un, Xi, others are waiting for America to fall. And they've been helping where they can. And they've been attacking me where they can to protect the church, to get away with this. This is an all-out emergency alert. And nobody sees the danger but me. And so by voice of the priesthood, again, confirming what he just said, this council in the valley of Adam-on-Diamond, still spelled wrong, it's the Danite spelling, is to be of the greatest importance to this world. At that time, there will be a transfer of authority from the usurper. Do you see how they're wording this? Hilarious. An imposter Lucifer, but they're Lucifer. Nelson's baby name meaning is Lucifer. Russell Marion, Lucifer. Mars, the husband of Venus, symbol of the inverted pentagram, Lucifer. That's amazing. To the rightful king, but it's not Jesus. I'm still waiting, Nelson. Hand it over. It's your doctrine. You claim the parable of talents. Where is it? I'm calling for your stewardship. He won't do it. He said he's going to do it. He's not doing it. It's been prophesied that Nelson's going to do it, and Nelson's not doing it. Nelson has to hand over the church to the rightful Christ. He's not doing it. He's refusing. Do you understand this? This that they claim is not what they're claiming. They're lying. And in the lie, we reveal the truth, that they are the threat. They are the usurpers. They have the government. And they're accusing the governments of the world of being in charge by Lucifer. Projection, beam, and mote. And so, when this gathering is held, the world will not know of it. The members of the church at large will not know of it. There are still some Mormons who, like me, believe that we will be able to go. Because it's not really talked about. It's a Mormon myth. And so for me, I wanted to find out. And I found out. And yeah, it confirms that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the Church of Lucifer. And so all those Mormons who are threatening me, who are attacking me, who are denying the truth, who are anti-Semitic, who are pure evil, who spit on Joseph Smith in the Book of Mormon, claiming that Christianity and Jesus are the way to believe or I must die. Dear God, you're just like a Danite. Exactly like a Danite. The question now is, do you know you're a Danite? Or are you one of those naive Mormons who got brainwashed? And so, yes, it has to happen before 8 April 2024. Clouds of glory. Preparatory to the coming in the clouds of glory of our Savior Jesus Christ. That's this conference weekend. They're supposed to have everything all set up to establish the kingdom for Jesus when Jesus suddenly comes to his temple that Nelson has failed to finish. And so, as a backup plan, they got the Kirtland Temple, but it's not going to be dedicated until the 27th of April, I think, after conference. Oops. Do not see the bigger picture that I see yet. I mean, yeah, this is not in order, and that's the last page. But this was a bombshell. The letter, or not the letter, the minutes of the High Council of 16th of January, 1839, leading into 1st of June, 1844. That alone is destructive to the claims of this church. It is humiliating. It is exposing. The church has nothing that can defend their position. This document destroys this church again. There's so many documents that destroy this church. It's just so sad that this church has fallen. That Joseph Smith was murdered to warn you, and that you will not believe the truth. Of course, those who are listening already believe. Thank you for the birthday wishes, by the way, even though this is at the end of the video. Those who watch to the end of my videos are the ones who wish me a happy birthday anyway. So yeah, like I said in yesterday's video, or 2 days ago, talking about Joseph Smith and his Mason and other videos, it's unclear. Clearly they are talking about the day that shall burn as an oven being on 8 April 2024. But Nelson is failing miserably to get the prophecies fulfilled. And so whether the day that shall burn as an oven happens on the 8th, it's unclear. But it's clear that Nelson is going to attempt to try to mask for Mormons that things are happening. You know, the Kirtland Temple will be a distraction, obviously. They'll lie to us about Kirtland and the Kirtland Temple and blah, 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 as they already have in the church news. But we are in perilous times right now. And we do need a group of Mormon believers that we can go and create Zion in advance. We're going to have to start with tents. It's unclear as to how we're going to possess the land. Probably going to need some rich people, which is not likely to happen because they don't want to give up their wealth for Zion. So yeah, I'm very concerned that utter destruction awaits. Why don't you ex-FOMOs listen to me? You too are in danger. Hinckley, which I have made a clip of, by the way, again threatening Mormons. That Hinckley, dear God, he was threatening to murder us if we don't obey. Dear God, what was this other one again that I got from the Thomas B. Marsh talk? Apostates to be whipped. Using Thomas B. Marsh's quote. And so yeah, I'll add this quote and stuff in here for you too. I'll just summarize it because we're at an hour and 5 minutes now. And so these will take another 10 minutes if I put the whole thing in. Which, maybe I should, but that apostles to be whipped, there is.